emodels.co.uk. Make something awesome. Hey everyone, it's Fox from Model Making Guru here. Hello, welcome to part 2 of our build of the Takom AML-90 light armoured vehicle, which we're going to Warhammer up to be what I've decided to call an Imperial Skitter. It just sounded right. It's a little light reconnaissance vehicle. It scoots in and scoots out, checks things out, maybe does a bit of advanced fighting, so it's got some guns, but it's really a reconnaissance vehicle, so it's a skitter. It skitters in and skitters out. There you go. It's an Imperial Skitter. I made it up. You could never play it on a tabletop, but it's going to look cool. So, if you remember in the last episode, we got most of the bodywork construction done. Somehow the wing mirrors are still on. I know, it's been about 3 or 4 days and they're somehow still on there. And we stuck on some greebles, we've got some tools and things like that, but we haven't put everything on there. Because now we need to start thinking about the actual custom build part of it, the actual sticking Warhammer bits on to make this a Warhammer style vehicle, not just a normal, proper real world vehicle. So I'm going to put this to one side because I don't want to damage it. And what we have here, we have a tray full of bits, Warhammer bits. We've got handrails, we've got towing hooks and more handrails. We've got cupolas from some of the tank vehicles and the, I've forgotten what they're called. What they're called, the little tanky things that are just APC, I've forgotten what they're called. Anyway, them little things. We've got some random bits. We have grenade launchers or smoke launchers or whatever you want to call them. Put those all over it. And we have things like spotlights. Where's the spotlight? There's a few spotlights in here anyway. And we've also got a number of hatch covers. Some half hatch covers and some full hatch covers. Now luckily, most of the hatch covers kind of look like they're about the same size. They're not exactly the same size, but they're kind of about the same size, so they work if you're having them open. Just stick them on. I mean, you could just plonk them on there if they were closed. So we've got some of those. So we've got lots of bits to play with. We also have the replacement weapon for the front. Now, like I said in the last episode, as far as I know, this is a twin-linked autocannon. It might not be. It might be something completely different. I've got no idea. I don't know my Warhammer stuff. And we've done some work, so I'll talk about this a bit later. We've done some work to get this ready, and that's obviously going to go on the front here. But we need to start getting everything ready now, and we're going to start with the turret. Now, the first thing I want to do with the turret, and this is where I was saying in the last episode about planning ahead your order of painting and everything else, and I'll explain that in a second. First thing I need to do with the turret is prepare it so it can have figures in it, because what I'm going to have is 2 figures sitting in the hatches. A commander in this, one of some sort, and a dude with a mounted gun here. Now what I've gone ahead and done, I've cobbled together 2 figures from the tank parts sprue, which is just a sprue you can get, and it's just bits that you can stick on your Warhammer tank or your armoured vehicle. I've still forgotten what the little thing's called, not a Razorback, what's it called? Oh, the little armoured, the metal boxes, it'll come to me in about, 3 in the morning, it'll come to me. Anyway, there's a few figure sort of bits on this kit. So what I've done is I've cobbled together the gunner, who is just a standard sort of marine type. And he's got, I don't know if this is really a part for a gun, but it's more like a control panel for something, or a steering column for the vehicle he's in. But I've sanded that flat so it can go underneath the weapon I'm going to put on the front, on the little stick. I forgot, pintle, that's the word. I'm forgetting all my words today. I'm going to have a pintle on here with a flamer on it, with a melter on it, I think. So he's been cobbled together. These are beautiful sculpts. These are some of the best sculpted figures I've ever come across in Warhammer. They're not realistic proportions, but just the quality of the sculpting is just so made for brush painting. And we have a commander figure who I've cobbled together. They're all shouty. They've always got their mouths open going, "Rah!" Because, Imperial forces, they're always angry all the time. And I've cobbled him together. So he's just holding a pair of binoculars. He's got a pointy officer's hat and a headset on. Now what we've done, this bottom half of him is actually from one of the little vehicle kits. It's like a default sort of piece you get for blokes sitting in the hatches. So the bottom half is just that, and it stops there. It's got some hatch components around him because you plonk it down and then you put the cupola around him. But I'm going to use that. And then I've got some of the commander arms and things like that. So he's been put together. This one again is just a pair of legs standing up. But what I've done is I've clipped away his feet. You'll see there, it looks a bit rubbish. However, the reason I've done that is because this is where thinking logically comes in. I'm going to have to build all this and then paint the whole vehicle. So build, get it all together. If I glue a figure in here, and he's in there like that, and he's like la la la, and I'm like, right, I've got to paint the vehicle. Oh wait, I can't get inside to paint the bottom of his legs or really carefully paint him. So I need to be able to build the vehicle and paint it without the figures in there, and then when I've finished later on put the figures in. Now with all his feet on and with all the sort of plastic around here where the sort of inside of the hatch would be, they didn't fit in, they wouldn't go in. So I've trimmed his feet down and I've trimmed down the hatch interior so that I can just slide him in like that, so you can go in after I've painted them all. And what we'll do is we'll paint the inside black, and what I'll do is when we paint these guys, I'll paint them black down here, and I'll just kind of blend it so it goes from black to whatever colour he is, just so it looks like shadow. Now the difficulty is, of course, there's nothing there, there's a big hole. If I do that, it'll just disappear inside the vehicle. So I need to put something here, and what I'll probably need to do is build up a little platform for these guys to sit on, so that they can sit up, so they can stand or be presented sticking up from the hatch. So I'm going to need to assemble some kind of little rig here. Now inside here doesn't matter, it's not going to be a problem. So what I'm going to do is build up a plastic card base and then some bits of plastic card to give them something to stand on. So let me go and get the plastic card and we'll start that. Okay, so let's get going. So I've got here a piece of plastic card, just standard, it's bigger than the camera. Standard plastic card, it's quite thick. I don't know the exact thickness, but it's quite thick, and it's just polystyrene sheet basically. And what I've done is I've traced the inside of the turret hole there. And all I'm going to do, put that there, otherwise I'll lose it. All I'm going to do is cut this out. Now you can use scissors for this if you want, you can use whatever you want. You could cut it out with a knife, but it will probably take you forever. So I'm just going to go ahead and struggle with this because I haven't got any big scissors. I'll go and get some big scissors and I'll cut that out. Bit harder than it looks. Okay, so that's now been cut out, and you can see I've left some around the edge because the hole I drew was here and I needed to stick to this bit, so I need to be bigger than the hole, so I did leave some excess. I had to use the big kitchen scissors. Yeah, you could do it with a knife, but it'd just take you forever and it'd be hard work, so just use the easiest tool you've got. So this is going to be fairly straightforward. We just need to make sure this fits on like that. As long as it catches in a couple of places, that's fine. Yep, that's perfect. Doesn't need to cover the whole thing. I'm doing it inside because the only bit that needs to go into the vehicle, into the body of the vehicle, is this bit, this lip with the hooks there. So it doesn't matter what goes on the inside. So all we're going to do is get ourselves our extra thin, and we're just going to be liberal with this and get it all over and get this glued into place. Now I know there is a piece of mold release tab thing here. Don't care about that. That's why I've not cleaned it off. And these little mold release pinholes, don't care. You're not going to see them, and it doesn't affect this part at all. So there you go. So we'll just make sure that's glued in nicely. I'm going quite firm with the glue, putting quite a lot of glue on because I want it to be really glued in. There we go. So that is done. This will now be the base for our little podiums. Podii? What's the plural of podiums? Podia? Podii? Is it Greek or Latin? I don't know. So we'll give this a minute to dry, and then we'll start building up some podiums. Podii, podia, octopodes, octopodes, octopuses. Okay, so that's dried. Now I've done some testing off camera, and I found out what I need to do to boost these dudes up. I got some plastic card, some thinner plastic card, just cut it into strips. I measured how far that was and just cut it into roughly that distance because I thought I might need to go across. What I've discovered is, the way I've done it, if I put that on, put the two halves together, then I don't actually need to boost the gunner at all because he can just stand there quite happily in the turret like that, and he's a bit sticky out a bit, but it's all right, it's fine. Let's just say he's standing up on a thing to fire the weapon. So that will probably be all right. I'll need to double check and put the pintle on there just to double check he's not too high. If he is too high, I might have to snip some of his legs off, so it's not the end of the world. I'll get the gun and everything glued on anyway. So we can just leave that with the plastic card there. For the other guy though, put this back on again. If I put him in, he just disappears. He's being held in place by his arms. He's a bit too low down, so I need to boost him up. And I did some tests with the plastic card, and I found if I use 4 pieces, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, thusly, like that, put the top on again, if I can get it lined up, more or less. If I put 4 pieces down, then when I put him in, he sits a bit higher up, which is perfect. Now he does lean forward a bit because that's not quite flat, so what we'll have to do is put some extra plastic here to make a little ramp. So what I've actually done is I've got 4 pieces of plastic card and just glued them together, and I've got 2 little pieces of plastic card there to make a little extra step. What we're going to do is glue those in like that, sort of like that, put that on there, and then when he goes in, if we're lucky, those extra pieces will look like a little step, and I can have him at a decent angle, sort of. I'll figure it out incrementally off camera, but yes, we need to make him straight and not. I mean, he can lean forward. It doesn't really matter. It's just I'd rather him not be leaning on the hull of the tank. So I'm going to adjust it a little bit, but that's basically how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to get these glued in. Might make some adjustments to this step, and then we'll do the next bit. Okay, so as you can see, I have jumped ahead a little bit. I've glued on the gun on the front here. Now I didn't film it because this was really fiddly and there's lots of swearing and fiddling around, and this wasn't the original weapon I planned to use. Originally I was going to use this, which I think is a heavy melter or a melter gun. It's like a flamethrower type thing, I think. I don't quite know. It's all Warhammer, I don't know. I was going to use this, but 2 things went wrong. 1, the little grippy bit here snapped and I couldn't attach it to the pintle. And 2, when I tried to drill out the barrels, yeah, this one wasn't centered and this one went wrong, so it just came out like a mess. So in the end, I abandoned that. I used, from that sprue of tank parts, this sort of parts for tanks sprue. It's Rhino, by the way, is the name of the vehicle I was trying to think of earlier on. Rhino. There was a little thing here, like a bipod thing, which looks quite cool. I don't think it's meant to be a gun mount, but it works quite well. And I attached this stubber, I assume it's a stubber, not a heavy stubber, to it. It's a machine gun to you and me. It's a stubber in their world. This is glued on. I had to trim some of the bottom part just to make it sit on the bipod, and that's on there. Then on that sprue as well, there was like an ammo crate with an open lid, which I've glued to the side here, and it's just been supported by this blue tack and this bit of plastic, which is the original pintle I was going to use. Now I've not glued the guys in. He's just in there for lulz. This guy's in there just so I could make sure. I had to kind of balance between getting this all glued on and positioning it so the thing that's in his hands actually sits in the right place, and it does just about. I'll have to manoeuvre him around a little bit, but he's not glued on. I'll take him out in a bit. So I'm just letting this dry now. When I put the captain or the commander in, as before, I had 4 pieces of plastic glued together going that way. And then what I did was glued, it was actually 4 pieces of smaller plastic in front of him to make a little step so I could angle him back and he was standing upright, because otherwise he'd be leaning forward and it'd look a bit weird. So I'm just leaving that to dry. Take him out. I'm just leaving that to dry now, that gun, that machine gun. So he's in. I'll take him out in a bit. So I need to leave that. I'm going to leave it for quite a while now because that is a very delicate assembly. There's only a little connection point here for the ammo box to the gun, and the gun is only attached by a very small connection point between that and the bipod. So yeah, I need to just leave that well alone now. So what's next? Well, next we may as well take care of the big gun on the front. So let me move the camera and we'll sort that out. Okay, so as it turns out, I couldn't go ahead and do the big can anyway because I needed the bottom bit attached here to make sure the gun was in the right place for the figure. So I've let this dry for a couple of hours and twiddle my thumbs. It's now a lot more sturdy and rock hard in there. It's not fully cured. I'm going to leave it overnight before I go anywhere near it with anything. But what I did do is I did add an extra bit to it. This is just basically a spotlight from a Rhino, I think. I just glued this onto the, well, it's glued in 2 places. It's attached to the ammo box, and it's also glued to the barrel or the body of the stubber, and then a little bit of plastic card was just placed over that just to cover it up a little bit because there was a little tiny gap. So that just covers it up and looks like a little bit of a brace or a bracket or something, or a clip that goes on to hold it in place on the rifle. So that's now in. Before, the ammo box was just attached at this point here in a very small point of contact, so it's a very weak joint. But now this searchlight is glued to the box on the rifle, it's all much more rigid and structured and not going to fall apart. So I'm really happy with how that's come out. That's pretty cool. It looks ridiculous. Now, it looks kind of silly. For a start, this looks like a massive machine gun, which it is. But it also looks a bit silly having the world's largest searchlight, and all it needs is the bat logo in the middle. The world's largest searchlight on your machine gun. But you know what? This is Warhammer, and everything in Warhammer is ridiculously huge and oversized. So there's nothing wrong in Warhammer at all at having the world's biggest searchlight attached to your machine gun. I think that just looks ridiculous, and that's why I like it. We're going for silliness here. So that is done. That's all glued on. Going to leave that over to one side and not touch it until tomorrow because I want it to fully cure. I did glue a small piece of plastic to the bottom of the gunner just to stabilise him a bit, so when I'm dealing with him in the turret I can get him in the right place and I've got a contact point to glue him down there. I'm not worrying about getting glue on the feet and trying to get him enough contact with the plastic, so I can just put glue on here and I might even be able to just PVA him, glue in. We'll see how it goes. Obviously inside is going to be primed black, so how I attach the figures does depend. We'll figure that out later. So that is all done. The next step, now I've got this bit free. Oh, by the way, you can see here the step that I made with the plastic card for the commander figure, who will just sit like that. That's how he's going to sit. If I didn't have that there, he'd just kind of sit leaning forward, which is a bit dumb, so I'm going to have him like that, so he can sort of look like he's actually standing upright. So that is that bit. The next bit we need to do now, sorry I knocked the microphone there, is the gun, the big gun, the twin-linked autocannon, which I think that's what it is. So what I've done, when this was came out of my bits box, it's in two halves, and it was actually had this bit on the end. It was actually like that, because this is supposed to go inside a turret and be on a pivot so you can angle it up and down. That's boring. I couldn't do that because that wouldn't have fitted in here. It's already got a mechanism for that. So what I've done is I took my trusty old hacksaw, which is just a bog standard, you know, DIY shop hacksaw, and just cut that off. I've sanded and filed it so it's all level. It doesn't need to be neat, you're not going to see it, but it's nice and flat. And we need to get this together, and then we need to attach it to here. Now there is this big nub here, which is designed for the gun on the kit, the 90mm gun. So what we need to do is first and foremost find my clippers, take that off. I left it on there while I was gluing everything just so it could give some structure and rigidity, but now we've done this, I just need to take that off. So I'll get my little file. Now you will see me using a metal file in this build. I don't often use metal files, but because these are bits that you're not really going to see, I am actually using for speed and to get nice flat surfaces a metal file. So if you do want to use a file and not just sandpaper or sanding sticks, golden rule is to be very gentle. The reason I'm using this is because it's flat, it's not going to bend, and I want to keep this as a flat surface. So I'm just going to very gently go over this to file it down, just to get it flat. I'm not putting much pressure on at all because I don't want to put loads of gouges and dings into the surface. So that should be fine. I'll go over with my rough sanding stick just to get rid of any burrs from the sandings, from the filing even. And then I'll go with my squishy sanding stick just to smooth that off a bit. Okay, so now we've got a nice flat surface that's got no nub sticking out. So I'm not going to glue the cannon to it right now, but I just want to check it all fits. So what we need to do is, as carefully as I can, because I don't want to damage the gun, get that in there, and then just do a quick dry fit and see if I need to have it that way up or that way up. And I think, oops, ping, let's get that back together again. I think what I may need to do is try and get this together. Get it together, man, get it together. Oh, fiddliness. Fiddliness. There we go. Right, so what I may need to do is have it upside down. Because if I have it this way, it's going to... will it fit? It might just fit. Might just... See, this bit might get in the way. This bit of fairing at the top, if I did it on camera, this bit of fairing at the top might just interrupt and get in the way. But if I do it upside down, it actually fits quite nicely. So I think I might have to do it upside down and hope that it doesn't foul the actual body of the vehicle. So what I will need to do is take this together and put this onto the actual main hull and just make sure that this doesn't foul the bodywork underneath. So let me go and take this up and we'll give it a quick check. Back in a moment. Okay, I did a quick test and yes, it's all fine. It all fits nicely. So what we're going to do is when we do glue this on, we're going to have the gun upside down, so this sticky out bit of fairing at the bottom, and we're just going to have it glued like that. So that's going to be cool. So let's put this again to one side. We need to make the gun now. So 2 parts to glue together. I've still got the nubs on there, but I'm not going to take the nubs off first. What I want to do is glue it together first. And I'm going to show you, if we're lucky, we won't need to use any kind of filler for the gluing. But let's just see. So we've got our 2 halves. What I'm going to do is be very generous with the glue. And I'm going to run it along both edges. I'm not going to be careful. I'm going to make sure there's lots of glue on there. Then I'm going to get the other part and put that on. Okay. Now what I want to do is run glue along the join. And what we're going to try and do, if we're lucky, we can actually use the glue to fill this gap. We might not be lucky, but if we're lucky. So what we need to do is get some along here. And I'm going to just basically give it a second. Move the glue out of the way. Give it a second. And then I'm going to squish, press. And if I'm lucky, what will happen is a bead of glue should squeeze out of the gap. Might need to put more on the ends of the barrels there. It should, if I'm lucky, squeeze out. I've just got a fingerprint in the glue, but I'm not worried about that because we're going to be sanding this quite a lot. So this is the first step because this might seal the gap for us. So I'm just going to really press it together, squeeze out some glue, squeeze. Thankfully, you don't need to drill these barrels out, they're already hollow. Okay, so that's that. So I'm going to put some on here, and some on here also. Squeeze. Now, sort of 8 times out of 10, 7 times out of 10, with small joints, this will actually be enough to fill the gap. Because what you're basically doing is the glue goes into the gap. If you remember, it's a welding cement, so it melts the plastic, and then when you squeeze it, that melted plastic and glue bubbles up out of the gap and fills the gap with itself. It's filling the gap between the plastic parts with plastic from the plastic parts. So if we're lucky, that bead of glue that comes up when we sand this in a bit will actually make a perfect join, and you'll get rid of that sort of seam line completely. If not, then we'll need to use some sprue glue. If there's any bits left that we need to clean up or fill in, then we'll use some sprue glue. So we might do that. I'll show you that if we do. If we don't, then I won't be able to show you sprue glue at this point, but you never know. I don't know what else I've got to build yet. So I need to leave this to dry. Before you start sanding and filing, for the extra thin, leave it for about an hour or 2, just to be tough enough that you can sand it and scrape it. You can leave it longer, but this should now be fine. So I'm going to leave that to one side, and we'll let that dry, and when we come back, I'll do some sanding, or I might go and do something else and film that next. So we'll either come back and do the sorting out of this and get rid of the seam line, or we'll go and stick some other things on other bits. Back in a moment. Okay, while we're waiting for the turret to dry, let's stick some other bits on other places. Now I've got a whole mass of pieces here. Let's tip them out, ungainly style. Now I'm probably not going to use all of these because a lot of these might be no use whatsoever. For example, I do know for a fact that this lovely piece of steel wire is no use at all because it doesn't fit anywhere. So, shame. There's the cannon just drying. So let's get some of these bits glued on. Move these to one side. So what I've done is I've used bits from my bits box, and I've used bits from the spare sprue that had all the tank parts on. So there's crates, There's backpacks with all kinds of things on. There's these two bits which I don't know what they are. They're probably some kind of weapon, and they're supposed to go together like that, but I came up with a cunning use for those. There's an aerial from the tank kit, that's pretty cool. So we're just going to go ahead and stick all these doodads on. First off, let's do these two pieces here. Now what I've done, these were hollow and they're supposed to go together like that, you see? What I thought was they'd look quite cool on the side here. So what I've done, I've cut off any little nubs or tabs that are on the inside. I've glued some plastic card to the open part, and I've just filed it and sanded it down so it's flush with the edge. So now we have this wonderful side piece, and what I'm going to do is basically stick them on the side like that, so they look like some kind of vent or something along those lines. So let's get these glued on. So dead easy, we're just going to take the extra thin and we're going to glue them on basically. So we're going to be quite generous with the glue. Again, as always, we get a few seconds of working time, so I'm going to put some glue on there, drop it obviously, then get it on my finger, place it on roughly. Doesn't need to be perfect right now. That's not going to stick. Stick as swine. Nope. Okay, so what we're going to do then, to make things faster, let's use the thick cement, the thick Tamir cement. Yes. Whoa, hello. Whoa. Don't know what I was doing that for. So we're going to take the thick cement. If I can get the lid off. Don't often use it, so the lid's got a bit gunked up. Just going to put a little dot of it in the middle. Blah, blah, blah. Not too much, don't need a lot right now. This is just to get us going. We're going to fumble and then put this here, so it's got some stick. And what I want to do now is get this lined up sort of with the edge. Now it doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as it's parallel, we're on to a winner. So that's kind of lined up with that edge. It needs to be straighter, I think. Just make sure it's parallel. Okay. Oops. I'm going to run some glue along there. I'll go back to my extra thin. Run some glue along this edge. That'll suck down under the plastic card, which is exactly what we want. Give it a little squish. Make sure it's fairly straight. Make sure it's fairly lined up. Do some underneath. Again, notice how I'm not being neat with the glue. Most of this build I've not been particularly careful or neat with this glue, because a lot of it, oh, knocking the camera, sorry. A lot of it will suck underneath the part, and anything that doesn't will flash off anyway. And if I do leave any big grubby marks like fingerprints, I've done it a few times, you can just sand those down. So we now have this piece all nice and lined up. I've lined up roughly with this bit here, and it does stick out at the back here. If I do it on camera, that's fine. Doesn't quite go to the bottom, that's fine. And that piece is now on, and we've got this awesome looking vent down the side. How cool is that? With my thumb in the way, camera's in the wrong place. How cool is that? So I'll make sure I do one on the other side. What else have we got? We have all kinds of, I've got this vent here, which is off my Storm Wolf. Haven't really figured out where to put that yet. It's got to go somewhere interesting. I could put it on the side there, I could put it on the side of the vehicle, but we'll leave that till when I've got other bits done. We've got some jerry cans. We have these some individual jerry cans. And unlike Tamir jerry cans, they come pre-made. You don't have to glue parts together. It's like, yes, because I hate jerry cans. These are quite straightforward. These can just go in here like that. They can just sit in there quite nicely like that. So shall I glue those in now? I'll glue those in now. So I can just glue those in. I don't need to worry too much about these. I just, oh well, I don't know. I might not glue them in now actually, because I want to be able to paint them. I'll leave those out. We have smoke or grenade launchers. Now what I might do on these is put them on here like that, because then they can go on top of there. That might be quite cool. So I'll get that done. All I need to do on this one is just place it down well, get some glue on it first, that'd be helpful. Get some glue, place it on there, give it a second. Make sure it's all lined up nice and straight. As I knock the camera, of course. I'll just run some glue along there. That's on. Perfecto. So I'll make sure I'll do the same on the other side. So we've got some badass smoke or grenade launchers. I have some towing hooks. Again, I think what I'll do is I'll put these on the front, but I've got to figure out where the camera is. I've got to figure out where the bulldozer blade is going to go first, if it'll fit. So we'll do that in a moment. And I have this thing here, which is quite cool. It's like a door type marking with a scroll and a skull and stuff. I think what we'll do for that is we'll glue that on here. So I'll get my thick glue again. See, the extra thin glue is great, but the downside is it does flash off quite quickly. So if you're going to be doing like gluing the side of a piece and then carefully placing it, it'll have probably flashed off by then. So the extra thin is best when a piece is already on another piece. For this kind of thing, where you're going to be messing about, I nearly ping the ring mirror off then, where you're going to be fiddling around, you're best to use the thick glue just as a temporary fix first and foremost. Push that down a little bit. There we go. So that is now on. Cool beans. I'll make it line up with the edge here. You can't line up with this bottom edge and the side edge, so what I'll do is err on the side of caution, make it line up with the side, and anything else outside that, the other edges, we can just explain it away that the vehicle has got a chamfer to it anyway. So we'll run that down the side. Oops, it's going to wobble around a little bit. Lots of glue fumes going on here. Whew. So that's on. Give it a little push. Okay, so that is now on. We've got this funky door on the side. That's quite cool, actually. Quite pleased with that. That's quite cool. So that's all lined up straight. You've still got some play with this glue, with these glues. So yeah, apologies for the bad camera work. I only realised after I started filming I've got the camera in just the wrong place. Yeah, I'll run it down the side here. And down there again, just to make sure. I'm going quite heavy with the glue here because it's just raised up a little bit off the surface. I had to sand off the piece on the back, so it is raised up a little bit, but that's fine. So that is on. Wow, glue fumes are quite strong. Remember what I said at the start of this film, do take breaks when you're using the glue. We've also got some Aquillas, the little Imperial symbols that go on there. I've got to figure out where to put those, and we've got some rolled up mattresses and sacks and things, and we've got lots of little hand grab rails, so I need to glue those on. I did get some big massive ones as well, but every time I cut one of those off the sprue they snapped in half, so I went for the little ones. And I've got a spade. I'm digging. Could make a really small cup of tea with that. 1 sugar, 2 sugars. There you go. So I'll go and get all these bits glued on. I'll need to sort of play with them and figure out where to put them. I might not use all of them, and we'll stick the radio, the Voxx. It's called a Voxx. We'll stick the Voxx antenna and stuff on the back here somewhere. And then when that's done, we'll go back. I'll show you that, and then we'll go back to the big cannon and get that sanded down and smoothed off and glued on. So back in a moment. Okay, so I've now added all the little greebles and bits and bobs I want to the rest of the vehicle, and I'll show you that in a moment. But before we do that, I just want to show you how we're going to do these twin-linked autocannons and get these cleaned up. If you can see here, you've got the seam line down the middle, all the way along, which has now been filled by the little bead of glue, and there's still the nubs on there. So what we need to do is first and foremost get these nubs off. Now we can be fairly, not have to be too precise here because we are going to sand this, so we're just going to get the majority of these nubs off, just very carefully with the knife, just to flatten them down. Now they will have been flattened and squished a little bit by the glue that was all over them, so that makes life a little easier. So we'll scrape those down Not looking to completely clean them off at this point, just reducing them down so there's not as much to sand. There's one here. Get this little nub off. There we go. Get me out of it perfect right at this point. And those are all the nubs. Okay, so we got those 3 nubs reduced a bit. Just do a bit more on that one, I think. It does help sometimes to go at nubs from different angles. Okay. Right, so that is reduced. Still not stabbed myself yet. So that's reduced. So now what we're going to do, the first step we think we need to do is just see if that bead of glue was enough to clean this off. Now you can do it several ways. You can just go in and start sanding straight away, or you can try shaving the line off. Now I'm not going to use my knife, but you can use your knife for this. I'm going to use my seam line removal tool. But if you haven't got one of these, just a knife blade will do, but just take it slow. Like I said before, this is a bit easier because it's the thick, inflexible blade, and it's not sharp. So all I'm going to do is very gently get this thing at 45 degrees and just run it along this seam line where the bead of glue was, and I'm going to rotate it slightly. And the beauty of things like this seam line removal tool, and others are available, this is the Citadel one, but lots of others are available, different shapes and formats, is because they are a thicker blade, they're not flexible like the blade on your craft knife. They tend to give you a much smoother finish. They don't skitter about and leave little scrapes and dings. That's what I was saying before about you could do a whole paddle and just get it as a nice smooth surface. So that's there. Now if we get the squishy sanding block, not a hard one, but my sort of medium grade I suppose it would be, I'm just going to give this a bit of a sand, see what comes out. Bit of stuff there, get rid of. Okay, so if I can get that little bit of thread of plastic off there, is annoying me. Okay, so I'm going to hold this up to the light. You can't see, but I can obviously, and I'm holding it up to the light, and I can see that there's no seam line there now. Also, it's not on camera. There's no seam line there. There's a little tiny bit at the end that I need to clean up, but that little bead of glue that came out of the joint was enough to fill the gap, so that when I scrape it like this with the tool or with my knife blade, it just scrapes away the excess plastic on the outside, and the seam line is gone because it's now filled with the plastic from when the glue was on it. So I need to go off and do that on the rest of this twin-linked autocannon, if that's what it is. If there is anywhere where there's a gap that I'll need to fill, I'll come back and show you. But if not, I'll come back and show you all the stuff glued on to the vehicle. When this goes on, I'm just going to quite simply glue this on here like that. Nothing too special or clever. I might run a little thin piece of plastic card around the gap just to cover it up, but we'll see how that comes out first. So, back in a moment. Okay, and as you can no doubt tell, we're done. All the customizing building work has been done. I did a lot of this off camera. I'll go through what I've done. I'll give you a quick tour of what we added, just very briefly. We've got sort of the access hatch covers here. I was lucky enough in having a single hatch and a split hatch, and that's kind of perfect for the commander because I didn't want anything in front of him and I can't put anything behind him because of the aerial. And this is perfect for the gunner because I couldn't have anything in front of him. We've got all kinds of bedding and things added on the sides. Got the Vox aerial there. Those jerry cans aren't glued in yet. More smoke launchers or grenade launchers or whatever they are. Some handrails and Aquila, of course, you must have an Aquila. And I did also add, you'll see here, there's a Acadian helmet. This is Canadian then, not Canadian. Acadian helmet on the side. You can't actually get a Acadian helmet like that that's not got anything inside it. But on in that pack of figures, there was one guy who had his helmet in his hand down by his side. So all I did was cut the arm off, sand the hand away, and there, bang, you've got a helmet. And this is to replace the French Army helmet that comes with this kit, because there's one you can glue on the side. and I wanted to keep that. When I saw I had that, I was like, yes, I can do that. That's the turret. I'm really pleased with the aerial. It looks just much more meaty and Warhammer now. On the body, of course, you can't miss the big, huge Dozer Blade. It's just the standard Dozer Blade that comes in the kit. It's designed for rhinos and things like that. I had to modify it slightly to get it to fit. I did want it to go underneath at first, but there was no clearance. It would have like stuck below the level of the wheel, so I couldn't do that. So I cut a big chunk of it off. It's somewhere over there, I've got it. Big chunk of the plastic framework was cut off, filed flat. Glued it to the flat part of the front. I had to cut off the towing eyes. Glued on some of these sort of grabby hooks and a piece of plating on the top just to lock it in place. And we have this big Dozer Blade which just about clears the floor. And yes, it looks ridiculous. An armoured car with a Dozer Blade. You know what? I don't care. This is Warhammer. This is fun times. When you normally see this on tanks, it's right up against the front of the tank or the rhino, but this just looks fantastic. I love this. This just looks so dumb. It's perfect Warhammer sort of material. Oops. So that is done. I did some other bits and bobs, like a fuel barrel on the back, and we've got some jerry cans. I do love this kind of collection of rucksacks and a weapon and some water bottles and a cup. I like that. I'm going to look forward to painting that. But yeah, that's pretty much all the adding and customizing done. So what is next? Well, there's nothing more on the vehicle to actually build now. I'll just put this back on here. There's nothing more to actually build. So logically, really, the next step is just to crack on with the painting. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the vehicle, get the vehicle all fully painted up first, and then we'll get all the figures painted, and then we'll start the weathering and stuff, and then we'll do the diorama, and then we'll be done. So that's only another, 25 episodes or something. Makes it sound like about 2 episodes. But this is all done, so next episode we'll crack on with the painting of this, try and get it all done, but we might not get it all done. I've still not fully decided on a colour scheme yet, so hopefully, well, I will have done by the time I start painting, put it that way. But right now I haven't got too much of an idea, so but it just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been useful. Like I said at the start, sadly at the moment eModels don't stock the Games Workshop Warhammer stuff, but don't panic, you can use any tank parts, any vehicle parts, any parts you want. You can make your own out of plastic tube or brass tube. Just find things you can stick onto a tank or a vehicle. I've had loads of fun doing this. It's been such good fun. And it's the first proper real sort of massive kit bash I've done. I've sometimes stuck things on other things, but I've never done anything like this. And it's so much fun because you're just jamming stuff together with no real concern for realism or accuracy. It's just silly good fun. And I think you'll agree, it looks a bit more awesome now. But yeah, I do recommend giving you a go at a kit bash. Get yourself a tank or a plane or a spaceship or something. Get a kit. And then just go through your parts. I do tend to keep all, when I finish a model and there's loads of bits left over, I put them in a bits box. It's good practice. Just do it. Make sure you do it. Every time you finish your kit, you've got stuff left over. Keep the parts because you never know when you'll need them. Yeah, just give it a go. Get yourself a nice little kit. Don't have to go expensive. If you're just having fun, get yourself a cheap little kit. Stick loads of bits on it. See what you can make. But yes. This is great. I've had great fun. Anyway, that's going to do us for this episode. Again, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget, as always, this film is being made for emodels.co.uk, my sponsors. Do pop along to emodels.co.uk, the UK's leading online retail store. I'm really having trouble with my words today. Yeah, I'm not going to do another take of this. This is about the 4th take. The UK's leading online... I'm terrible. I'll start again. The UK's online model retailer. They carry so much stuff, everything you need. Kits, paints, tools, books, reading materials, diorama stuff. Pretty much anything you need. We always say, if you haven't got it, you don't need it. If there is something you're looking for specifically and you can't find it on the website, don't panic. It's either just gone out of stock temporarily, or maybe it's something they don't carry but they can probably get it for you. So either way, if there's something specific you're looking for and there's nothing else on there that does the job, just drop them an email and ask them either when it'll be back in stock or if they can get it for you. They can get stuff from their distributors that they don't normally stock if you ask, so it's always worth a try. Always give them an ask and let them know. And don't forget, of course, Monday nights 9 PM GMT, Ted, Chris and I do our eModels live stream, where we just kind of waffle on about the 1980s for 2 hours, and then we might occasionally discuss some model making stuff. But more importantly, we talk to the guys in the chat. It's for you to come along, join in the live chat and ask us questions. We'll do our best to answer those for you. So anyway, I've made a right hash of this last segment. I've recorded it 3 times now, and I'm not doing it again. So, thank you again for watching. Do take care of yourselves. Stay tuned for the next one. We'll start at the painty. And until next time, go make something awesome. Go be awesome. Adios, amoebas.